We're almost there, almost, as we are now a day away from a holiday weekend. Some of you maybe have already started your longer weekend with Easter and maybe spring break for some others. But nonetheless, this is a Thursday morning here for a Thursday edition of Mic'd Up on Pittsburgh Sports Live and Pittsburgh Sports Now. I'm your host, Mike Asti, and joined by my fellow Mike Vukovcan, as Mic'd Up is presented by Martin Lawn Services. Hit up Doug Martin at 412-849-5894. And for this show, we are going to discuss, of course, Pirates baseball with opening day now, hours away, as the Pirates will take on the Chicago Cubs, have that opening series here during this holiday weekend. So we will give our 5 predictions about this Pirate season. We touched on yesterday some expectations, what to look for. We're going to give some predictions for this wild Pirates season, which I'm sure will be controversial no matter how you slice it, as the Pirate seasons always are. But before we get there, we also are going to talk about some Pitt recruiting news, Jeff Capel recruiting news, and a recruit he did not land, and if this now changes any perception of him being able to fix this program in this offseason, because it always was they were losing players like everyone, but he could fix it. He can recruit with the best of them. Loses out for Jared West from Marshall as he ends up choosing Louisville instead of Pitt. So Mike's also going to probably touch on some comments from Pitt fans, which I know I'm always excited for. That's always going to be fun to hear from the Pitt fans and what they think of things right now. And Mike, as we get underway, we'll just jump in right there. Jared West leaving the Marshall program. So that's a program that we cover throughout the network, now part of WV Sports Now. So we're involved with Marshall coverage. They're in West Virginia, so a little further of the region than Morgantown with WVU, but still in the area. He says that Pitt is one of the teams he's looking for. That would be a major conference team. That would be the ACC, certainly a step above for Marshall, despite what they were building there. And that would be a team that's not too far away in maybe a nearby city, even though it's hours away in Pittsburgh in a neighboring state of West Virginia, but yet chooses Louisville, which is another ACC team, a rival to Pitt. And yes, Louisville's been a more successful program over the last 20 years, but they're also coming off controversy of Rick Pitino no longer being there, the way he left and taking Iona to the tournament while Louisville missed out. What does that say to you that Jeff Capel loses out on this player who seemed to be a player that could fit in with Pitt well and be a player that would make sense in coming there as a step above program? If, say, West Virginia's not interested, why not Pitt? And he decides, no, I'm going to go to Louisville despite what they're dealing with right now. Is that good, bad, or ugly for the Pitt program right now and Jeff Capel?
Well, I was a little surprised. I had a few phone conversations with Jared West, did a couple stories with him.
Okay.
I thought he was going to pick Pitt. I really did.
It seemed like to make sense. It really did.
I thought he was going to. He seemed to really hit it off with Jeff Capel. But in the end, Pitt fans have to remember that in his statement, as far as why he picked Louisville,
right,
when you have 1 year to play, some of these kids transfer out and they still have 3 or 4 years left, depending on what year you're leaving. Jared West has 1 year to play.
You got to max it out. Yeah.
Yeah. And he mentioned that Louisville, he believes, has a chance, to compete for the ACC championship and get to March Madness in the championship. Once you make there, who knows? As you say,
and it highlights you as an individual even more as well.
Yeah. And so until Pitt wins, it's the chicken or the egg thing. You have to do you have to get recruits to win, or do you have to win in order to attract better recruits?
I think a little bit of both.
Yeah, he's trying to find that out right now, and West didn't pick him. I don't think this is a major loss. Jared West is a nice kid. He's a nice player, real character player. He's not a player that's going to move the dial as far as Pitt. But the problem is it's a pattern of not being able to play him, as we were to get him. And as we see here from Pitt fans, Wayne, Pitt should just drop basketball. They'll be trash forever. Terrence, is Capel ever going to get a commitment from anybody? I mean, there are 1,000 players in the portal. As I see, his recruiting has been very subpar. Jeff Capel isn't a closer.
As I slap myself.
there's one more good one on here I really liked. Oh, Sean, he is incapable.
Oh,
That was pretty good.
clever,
Incapable,
Sean.
yes,
Okay,
of
Sean.
getting anyone to come to Pitt. We hear about all these 4 and 5-star caliber players that he's targeting, and they all go elsewhere. And then the final one, which is I'm going to touch upon next, Cowie back says that the bottom line is Pitt does not pay the bag. So we get no players that are on the fence to go anywhere.
Right.
Um,
And Louisville is that program that had recently been involved in a scandal. We know Rick Pitino and the way he exited, and that involves more than just money exchange, which every program seemingly is rumored in that has success, but also involvement with prostitutes and then Rick Pitino's personal life. There's been a lot going on there with that program.
the bottom line, I think, is, and I think the last comment was actually the most, nothing against our comment. We appreciate all the comments.
Yeah, the other ones are funnier. This one might be a little funny and
but
truthful.
The last guy hit the point is that I live in a reality world. People can talk about why Pitt doesn't get, the reason Pitt doesn't get the major recruits is they don't cheat. And that's,
right.
That's it.
And there are some programs that do 100%.
Yeah. If you look at all the teams where a lot of these higher ranked kids are looking at and talking to, there's a pattern. Miami, nothing. I don't want to hear from any of these alum. I'm just,
I mean, there was 30 for 30 documentaries. I can hardly deny it.
Miami, LSU,
on the football team, at least.
Arkansas, all those, Mississippi players. There's a pattern there.
I think we could even allude to
play the game. He wants to recruit the kids on merit. He wants to recruit the kids on, I'll be able to get you to the NBA. Some kids don't want to hear that. I'm not saying Jared West did that. I'm saying for the totality of Jeff Capel's career at Pitt, I don't know what the answer is. Is he going to break the trend? Yes. He's going to get kids here. I don't know when, but I think Pitt fans need to let off him as far as he took over a dumpster fire here. And
to say the least,
you just don't attract, just because you're a Pitt fan, that doesn't mean kids are going to want to come here. For what reason? You haven't been to the tournament. You don't win. You don't fill up your building anymore. So there's not, the only attraction you have is playing in the ACC.
Right, and that was an attraction that Louisville can also provide. This is another team that's in the ACC, and as much as Louisville's been involved with scandal, they've also been involved with Final Fours, with national championships in the last 20 years. They've had Rick Pitino there, who's a Hall of Fame coach, despite also being involved in scandal. And certain programs, even if they don't win titles, the kids do know that they're going to get you exposure on national TV, and they're going to get you a chance at the next level, or at least to maximize your talent. I'm not saying Jared West is going to play in the NBA. That's probably not the case. But he'll still be able to maximize the talent, maybe go play in Europe, and he'll still get the same ACC love that he'd be getting at Pitt. And I think it is the chicken and the egg, but that is true, that the Pitt program and the Pitt today and the Pitt program that Jeff Capel inherited is not the Pitt program that Jamie Dixon inherited from Ben Howland, and it's not even the Pitt program that Jamie Dixon left behind. There was that middle period there where Kevin Stallings kind of let it go, where they couldn't even win a conference tournament. Granted, that he didn't maybe have the best of situations either, but there was certainly not success there. He didn't do a great job. And then Jeff Capel had to bring it up from the dirt. He has been known to be a great recruiter. He has been known to help programs in recruiting, certainly Duke, even though they're that blue blood. Maybe this is his first test, to be fair to some of the commenters, that yes, he helped Duke and improve their recruiting, but it is easier to do that when you already are Duke, with Coach K being the champion that he is. He already had won several prior to Jeff Capel getting there. So maybe that's easier than doing it now at Pitt. It's the same thing we talk, and we'll get to with Ben Cherington and the Pirates. It's easier to win a World Series with the Red Sox than it is to win it with the Pirates and dig them out. So maybe this is harder for Jeff Capel. But yeah, if you don't have a recent trend of winning and missing tournaments, and also you can blame this too on Capel. maybe this is where the fire should be aimed. And I know this is what Alan Saunders told me when he filled in for you. And this is legit criticism, except for the jokes of he's incapable and the program. I mean, he's going to get recruits. He can do that. And this is only the first swing and miss after a year where everyone's leaving every school, it seems. But you can legitimately criticize Jeff Capel for allowing seasons to get away, not maximizing the wins in those individual seasons. And maybe it wouldn't be for this player, but maybe this is why that if you're going to miss a tournament, you don't want to miss it by losing 9 games in the last few months, or losing to teams you shouldn't lose to, or seeing your star player diminish himself, and maybe that hurt him individually and your team doesn't win, and then you're of course losing players. The way this season unraveled for Pitt could potentially hurt kids. Maybe kids are thinking it's now back-to-back years. This coach has lost a lot of games the last 3 months and they missed the tournament. That is on Capel. So if that trickles to recruiting, that is on Capel. But he's going to get kids. They certainly shouldn't end the program. The other programs have been able to pick it up from worse. And I think what also, Mike, and this is now true even in teams that are around in March Madness this year, that had deep runs this year, that some of the, I will say this too, yeah, some programs cheat, some programs get away with it, some don't. Some programs are willing. You look at Memphis with John Calipari early on. Some programs are willing to have a championship or a Final Four that doesn't really count, but everybody knows they won it. Like, I think some programs are willing to say, we'll win it, and then 10 years from now, you can take the banner away, but everybody knows that we won it, and it'll help us in the future. And also, when you have those football programs that hadn't been good for 30 years in basketball that all of a sudden win and make a deep Elite Eight run, there's probably some bags being thrown around to help that cause as well. So
that's the way it is. And, you know, we could pick out programs. Memphis. You think everything, what's going on down there?
Sure. No. Derrick Rose. Yeah.
Alabama's all of a sudden, in 2 years.
Look into Florida State and the Jameis Winston situation with them now.
Yeah, I'm focusing on a little bit with basketball. Nate Oates comes from Buffalo, and all of a sudden,
sure.
4-star kids. Is everything on above board there? I would pretty safe.
Well, look at USC in basketball.
That's just the way it is. And Pitt fans, the only thing that's going to cure this is winning. And
because no matter what, that would fix it.
Yeah, he gets to the tournament a couple years in a row. Jeff Capel will bring in recruits. I think he's going to bring in recruits before they get to the tournament. I got a feeling they're on the cusp of getting we'll get into this probably in the next few days, but I got a feeling they're on the cusp of getting some fans out there know who I'm talking about, but a 5-star NBA player. I from what I hear, Pitt's in a very good position to land him, and they've done it without winning. So just imagine what Jeff Capel, he'll be able to build the brand up, but it takes time. And I gave this example last week, and the commentators were talking about it in the March Madness, the shows this week. Leonard Hamilton, the administration of Florida State gave him 7 years without making the tournament at Florida State.
That doesn't happen anywhere, really.
No,
but yeah.
And now has Florida State as one of the top 3 teams in the ACC for the last 4 or 5 years.
Right.
It's because the administration gave him time. The fans didn't want him fired. And they need to have that same approach with Jeff Capel. Jeff Capel will get the job done. It just takes time.
You do have to give him time. You have to give any college coach time, but you certainly have to give this college coach time after the program situation that he inherited. He has the people on the phone that he can call. He has the mentorship. He has the lineage. He has the ability. He's proven it before. He seems to be the right guy. And here's a bigger kicker, Mike. He wants to be there and do it there. So he's not looking to get out. So I think that, honestly, maybe the blessing in disguise could be hired away a couple years. If Coach K somehow would retire, maybe he's not as attractive to Duke or something. But he wants to be there. He wants to build this up. I do have a reason to believe in Jeff Capel as well. But you look at a lot of these programs, even USC with O.J. Mayo years ago, and now all of a sudden, between decades, they're back. Would you be shocked if 2 years from now we hear that USC was breaking rules to get this year out of the God? Nobody would be surprised. But
I would say that if I had to throw a number out there, I don't know, 60% or higher in big programs cheat.
Yeah, and we even talked about it last week during West Virginia's run with Huggins too. That's another reason why his career has been so impressive. When you're doing it a non-blue blood and then him not wanting to cheat, it really puts you down behind the eight ball. It really, really does. So kudos to them. Maybe you want them to keep up with the Joneses and cheat if they can, but I guess it's only cheating if you get caught.
Let's talk baseball.
Yeah, I'm excited.
What's Pirates open up today? Little Chad Cool, 220. Wish they'd had a little bigger name, but it's good to see him all the way back from his arm troubles.
Right.
Throw out 5 predictions here.
Okay.
I'll go one.
Sure.
You give a quick. We'll go back and forth here, but my prediction is my first one with the win total. Everyone wants to know that so they can go to Vegas or Rivers.
We still don't condone this on the show.
Yeah, throw in there.
Don't get mad at us.
Yeah, I'm going to say the Pirates win between. And this, trust me, this is nothing to brag about, but I'm going to say that they win somewhere in the 60s. I'm gonna go in the 60s.
Early or mid? I feel like early.
I'm going mid. I'm going 65 to higher.
Okay. Yeah, I mean I
might go with 65 or 66 wins this year.
Okay, that would be bold. I would feel like, because that would certainly put you in under 100 losses, and that's where most have them put. So, yeah, or
put the mortgage on it.
Yeah, under 100 losses. So yeah, that put the mortgage on it. Yeah. Don't email us or comment to us and blame us if you do lose your house, because you never know with the Pirates. I think one I'll throw out there for Brian Hayes. I think he's going to be an all-star. I think he's going to be the Pirates all-star this year. I do think there might be a slow start, but I think he's going to pick it up enough, and I think he's going to give people a reason to be at that ballpark. So I do feel a quality season for Brian Hayes, and him being the Pirates all-star. Probably not any other all-stars for the Pirates, but I do think Brian Hayes is that all-star for the Pirates.
Prediction number 2 for me. The Pirates, and this goes to something we were talking about last night, the Pirates won't have a 10-game winner in their rotation.
I'm totally with you there. I don't see how that. Yeah, I don't see how they would. Chad Kuhl being the opening day starter, I think one for me, and this goes to the pitching staff as well. I think there are going to be multiple men that are a part of this 5-man rotation that are going to be more than 5 men. Let's just say I think they're going to be switching around this 5-man rotation. I think Chad Kuhl, as I said yesterday's show, I'll use that here again. Chad Kuhl is starting opening day for the Pirates. And again, make this clear. This is a bad team. They're rebuilding. I don't feel Chad Kuhl should be considered an ace, nor a number 1 starter, nor an opening day starter on most other teams. He's normally more of a number 3 on a good team. But still, kudos to him. Great for him. He was the last pitcher to be selected as the opening day starter. I'm with you there, and I also think that Chad Kuhl is going to move from opening day starter to quasi third man in this rotation at some point. I think there's going to be a precipitous drop for him. You have to remember, he's coming off of a major surgery a couple years ago, pitched only a couple games, only a handful of games last year in the truncated COVID season. His family hasn't seen him pitch in 2018, as crazy as that sounds. It just doesn't spell a good recipe for him individually. And he's that young pitcher they maybe could hang their hat on, but I think he moves off of what is a de facto number 1 position at some point too, going down.
The feel-good story of the Pirates is going to be, and it won't just be because he's a hometown kid, but I think their bullpen is actually, I think they actually have some arms in there. I think Sherrington is going to have some guys that he could deal, possibly Kyle Creek, Rodriguez, but I think David Bednar, the Western Pennsylvania kid,
from Mars, yes,
yeah, Mars. I think he's going to end up being one of the Pirate better pitchers in their bullpen. Is going to finish the season somewhere during the season. He's going to end up as the Pirates' new closer.
Wow, what a story that would be! The Pittsburgh fans would eat that one up.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think, and I think it's going to be out of merit. It's not going to be
right.
Some Don Kelly or some guy that's on the bench. Nothing against Don Kelly, nice guy. But I think Bednar's going to establish himself coming over here, and he pitched. He was probably one of the Pirates' better arms in Bradenton this year. And I think he's going to end up being a really good story and will be their closer before the end of the season, and will finish it.
And that would be a great story because that would very, very likely mean that he would start next season as the Pirates closer. And especially, again, being a Mars product, you're going to hear a lot to make this clear. If you don't know now, you know, you're going to hear this a lot during broadcasts. He's from here. He is from Pittsburgh. He's from the Whippeal. He's from Mars. It'll be said ad nauseum. A drinking game. I don't know if I endorse it because you'll be in the hospital. He is from here. One for me, I think Gregor Polanco is not going to finish the season with the Pirates. I think he's going to be moved at some point. I think he was a player that, like Josh Bell, if he could have showcased himself last year, Bell didn't, but it still was moved. He picked it up late. If Gregor Polanco could have picked it up a little bit more earlier in the season, he did actually start to hit towards the end of last season. But at that point, everybody covering the Pirates, the fans, even the national, just having to be near the Pirates, even national media, pretty much quit caring about the Pirates. So nobody was even watching what Gregor Polanco was doing. He did pick it up towards the end. But I think if he can start out decent, if he can pick it up from there, and if he can give you something, maybe positive or negative, I think they're just done with him. I think he's gone mid-season. If he probably will be the name player that is moved. I don't know what the value will be, but I can't imagine a full another season with him with Pittsburgh. He's not a long-term guy. And if he struggles mightily, maybe they'll just move him anyway. But if he has any type of value that he can build, I think then that's the guy they try to move at the deadline for value just because of his past. I don't think he finishes the season with the Pirates, though.
Prediction number 4. And I hope this happens. This guy seems like a character guy. It's a guy that Sherrington brought over last year. Got injured toward the ends of last season. But I think I'm anxious to see, and I think Anthony Alford. He's going to open as the Pirates center fielder. They picked him up last year from Toronto. I think he's going to establish. At one time he was a top 50 prospect in baseball when Sherrington was with Toronto.
Right.
Wasn't able to find his way, but like a guy like Dustin Fowler, who was also brought here from the A's, he was also a top 75, top 50 prospect. They kind of have similar stories in that they had a high ceiling at once, didn't work out with their original team. Now they're with the Pirates. I think Alfred's going to. I think he was going to establish himself as a really good player, and he's going to solidify the Pirates' center field job. If he's able to stay healthy, that's the qualifier. But if he is, I think he has all the tools to be a middle of the order hitter, very good defensive player, and I think that's going to be a position. I think they're going to have 2 of their outfield spots filled with Alford and Reynolds in left field.
And that, again, if that would occur, and that was one of the last players named to the starting lineup as well, is solidifying that center field position as well. Derek Shelton saying, I'm going to name it by tomorrow. And he said this yesterday. Well, tomorrow's today, and you needed to at this point name it, but he has. That's what actually helped the Pirates, because we always compared this maybe similar to what 2010 was for the 2013 team. If that's the ceiling, maybe a few years from now, that's the hope at least for this team, as bad as it's going to be right now. That was built off having a solid outfield, one of the better outfields in baseball. Maybe that could happen to the Pirates with a young outfielder at least, and of course Hayes being that star for the overall team. I think one for me, and this is a player that had a very unsung season last year, an unsung solid season that actually connects to our Pitt topic a little bit. We mentioned Kevin Stallings, his father. I think Jacob Stallings may help Pittsburgh fans not hate the Stallings family too much, because I think once again Jacob Stallings is going to be an unsung hero to this Pirates team. Ke'Bryan Hayes is going to be the best player and going to be the all-star. Maybe some others can be better than him overall. But I think Jacob Stallings is going to have another year. Is going to be solid, going to solidify that spot as the catcher, at least for the most part. And I think he might even vie where people are going to say maybe he's even team MVP for a bad team. Just because for me, he felt like almost the heart and soul of the team last year, as bad as they were. So I think that's a possibility with him. I think he's going to have an okay year, under the radar, be an unsung player again, and help better the last name around Pittsburgh.
My last, it's not a prediction, but it's a guy that I think the two storylines outside of Pittsburgh that Pirate fans will be watching this year.
Okay.
We talked about it last year, who their pick will be. Number one pick will
Right.
be Leiter or Rocker. The other story I think people are going to keep their eyes on this year is the Pirates' number one pick from last season, Nick Gonzalez. He's a second baseman. Kebron Hayes is going to be their third baseman.
Right.
Nick Gonzalez has one of these, I believe, career paths similar to Hayes, that he's not going to be in the minor leagues very long.
You think September we see him, or even before that, maybe? Or
I don't know. I think that's something to watch. If not this year, definitely next year. I think he's a guy that would, like Hayes, will garner a lot of national attention, and it'll be merited. I think he's going to be a big time top of the order hitter, power, defense. And I think the Pirates have a chance there. And, I know we hear this all the time, and, it's always for the future. But I really do believe that they have two building blocks right there in Hayes and Gonzalez. And I think Nick Gonzalez is going to be a stud for the Pirates. And those guys are potential cornerstone players for the future. So we'll see how fast he develops in the minor leagues. If not this year, at the end of the year, I believe he'll be in Pittsburgh next year. But who knows? Maybe he'll have a meteoric rise throughout the system this season.
Yeah, and maybe it'll be like Hayes last year, where I don't think prior to last year, granted, it was all different because when we were doing the show at that point, it was right before COVID. People didn't know the future. But I don't know if anyone thought Kebron Hayes would come up when he did, would be a sensation when he did, especially with how bad the team was and how sluggish the opening start was to the year. So maybe if it gets really bad again, that same thing could happen with Gonzalez, and then we'll see what happens. Just wait and see approach with a young team. And again, I think one of mine is I think one of mine is, and I'm not going to go, they're going to lose less than 100. I think they're going to be probably a 100-loss team. I think they're going to be a really, really bad team. Honestly, I don't know if there's reasons to go to the ballpark outside of having kids and wanting to experience it. I can watch it from home with them rebuilding. However, I do think they're not going to be the worst team in all of baseball. Yeah. I will say that. I think there's going to be at least one other team, maybe the Baltimore Orioles, if I have to throw one out there right now. Yeah, that's going to be the worst team in all of baseball. I do not think the Pirates will be the worst team in all of baseball. They may still lose 100 games and not be the worst team in all of baseball. It's going to be really, really bad. And it might, honestly, it might be really, really bad next year. It could be really, really bad the year after that. But what's going on with the Pirates over the last 20 years, it's not Ben Cherington's fault. You got to give this guy time now. We will see. I totally get why fans are upset, though. And I do believe they didn't maximize the window in that 13 to 15 regime, but none of that matters now. Last thing on the Pirates, though, and this is kind of more of on the funny note, but maybe we'll get an actual reality with this. And we touched on it a little bit on our last show, but I just want to ask you now to kind of close up shop here today. This is a player that publicly said he did not want to play in Pittsburgh. The Pirates suck. He didn't want to do it, just wanted to increase his value. The Pirates said, okay, here's an out. Training camp, you played well. You did it in spring. Okay, go seek value, go get elsewhere. Couldn't do it. He's back with the Pirates now on the minor league roster. Todd Frazier, will he swing a bat for the major league club this year? Or is he eventually going to get cast off somewhere else? Will he stay in the minors and then look for elsewhere? And is he going to be up with the club and have an at-bat and have some week or so and then boost his value? How does that story end? Because it's just been weird, especially in a 3-hour period where he went from being allowed to seek elsewhere employment and then all of a sudden he's back, which tells me he didn't have value that much elsewhere.
Yeah, kind of weird how that all worked out.
Yeah. And he's a formerly solid veteran player. I mean, this is a 20-plus home run guy. He's won a home run derby. He had that great tenure with the Reds. It's not like he's a piece of crap. I'm kind of confused a little bit. He's older now. But
I think the thing is people are remembering Todd Frazier for what he was during the times that you mentioned. But if you actually look at what he's done in the last few years,
sure,
especially with the Mets, he's past what he is as far as being a regular contributor.
Sure.
Am I surprised that maybe a veteran team didn't pick him up? Maybe, but he didn't show anything. But to answer your question, yeah, I don't think the Pirates would have brought him back even if it's on the taxi squad or whatever they have him working out at the alternate spring training site, which will be here in Pittsburgh,
Right.
if they didn't have some end game of bringing him here. We know that an injury is going to happen. Something's going to happen during this first month. It always does. First few weeks, somebody will, pull a groin, hurt a knee. They'll do something, and Todd Frazier will be here. As far as is he going to do anything of value that's going to increase his trade stock?
Probably not. No.
No, I don't think that's going to happen. But I think he'll be a member of this team. I think that Derek Shelton liked him as far as the presence he would have, considering some of the young players that are on this team.
You think it would be a bat that the pitcher would have to respect, at least in the lineup?
Yeah. I have no problem having him here, being a guy on the bench and being a mentor for guys like Newman and Frazier,
Right.
Gonzalez, guys who were trying to figure it out. Even Key Brian Hayes.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, Todd Frazier was an all-star for many years. Why not have him as a guy that, I know Hayes has his father, Charlie Hayes, to call home and to get advice from, but Frazier's in the dugout, and he's one of those guys that are, he's almost like a Sean Casey type as far as his personality
Right.
and how well he's liked. So I don't think he's going to cause any problems. He'd only be a benefit, especially off the field. I think his days of being anybody that can contribute anything, much on the field, those days are gone. But I still think that there's a role for a guy like Todd Frazier, if it's not with the Pirates, with somebody else.
Yeah, and I honestly thought that he would have somewhat of value to have a role with somebody else, especially when, despite being a really nice guy, and this might be why the fans are a little bit annoyed with him, unlike Sean Casey when he came over. You knew that was a short gap, too, during a rebuild. Yeah. But Todd Frazier, he probably regrets it now, too. To let it out that he didn't really want to play with the Pirates. I mean, honestly, I can't be that mad at the guy. I mean, when you think about it, Mike, when you look at his age and his career, he probably isn't excited about having to play on a Pirate team. A lot of veteran players, when they're no longer good, they want to do the mentor role. They want to do it on a winning environment, or there's been worse players that have been worse more recently that have been able to get on a bench role on a good team. So it is surprising that he can't do that. I will say, off of Todd Frazier, obviously it wasn't successful the last couple years, but to be fair to him, Mike, 21 homers as recent as 2019. That is not that long ago. He had 21 homers in the big leagues. The year before, 18. He does have a 40 home run season, which granted, that was 2016. He's a multiple-time All-Star. He's been there and done it before. He can be a great mentor. And no, you don't expect him to dominate on the field or be an All-Star again, but he had 21 home runs only a couple years ago. And last year, you can give a lot of players a mulligan, especially older players, because of COVID, and they probably weren't in great shape, and they might not have cared, and they might have been worried about a pandemic. 21 homers a couple years ago in Major League Baseball. That tells me he should at least collect league minimum and throw on the bench, and maybe he'll hit a home run every now and then. That's shocking to me that his value is that bad off of a year and a half since those 21 bombs.
Well, I also think that, as we've talked about, he doesn't have many years left.
He's old.
When he signs that minor league, when any player signs that minor league contract, there's an opt-out date to where if they're told they're not going to make the team or going to have no role with the team, it's well within your right. That's why you're a veteran. That's why you've collected years in the league. So I think
he's 35 years old. Yeah.
He's earned the right to go out and look. If he's going to sit on the Pirates bench every game, why not go around and look throughout the league and say, there's other bad. Pirates aren't the only team in baseball that stinks. So he can get some at bats someplace else. He looked at that. Maybe it wasn't there what he thought. Yeah. And he liked the situation here. So
he's back. I would imagine he comes up at some point. I don't think it'll be bad. And I guess the thinking for the Pirates would have been, maybe when we brought him in a month ago before spring, would have been, if he can make something out of nothing and then maybe do something during the year, you can trade him and get some value. Maybe he could be a player that can help somebody in a pennant run or something, even if it's a draft pick. But again, his value is just really crap right now. He clearly is aware of it. He's 35, but
his only chance to get any value would be as if Colin Moran or Hayes.
Yeah,
I would think that if Hayes even got hurt at third base, they'd probably switch Eric Gonzalez, who could probably play corner. His only chance to get regular at bats with the Pirates would be Colin Moran is hurt at first base. He goes over first. He would have a chance.
And Moran had a solid year in terms of power last year, at least more than any other Pirate. But there's no guarantee he does that again. That's certainly a player that you got to watch for to see what he does. So we will see. It's going to be a wait and see with the Pirates. It's going to be really, really bad. You're going to be watching a lot of losing baseball. I'll tell you that right now this year. But it'll be rebuilding maybe to something. And at least I will say one thing to get happy, and this is something to be happy about for Pirate fans. You have a management structure that has proven it before, number one. But number two, they are not scared to admit this is a rebuild. That's what annoyed me about past regimes. They would try to lie and say, oh, we're not rebuilding. We're going to try to win this year, when clearly they're not. Cherington is willing to say, okay, we're rebuilding. I wouldn't expect a pennant this year. We're going to rebuild this thing. It takes a while. We had to make these moves. He actually won some deals. So that's reason for optimism, that at least he's not terrified to admit this is a rebuilding process, because everyone who's not an idiot knows it clearly is. So, but yeah, Todd Frazier watch. I'd like to see how many at-bats he collects this year. Take that to Rivers if he can get over under 10 as a Pirate this season, or if he does come up and ends up elsewhere, or what ends up occurring. But nonetheless, opening day. So it's finally here. That's the number one holiday of this weekend before we get to what goes on Sunday. And that'll do it for this.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, that'll do it for this morning show, though. We do have more to touch on, of course, with the Final Four set and those games coming up. The madness of March will trickle into April now with opening day. So we got a lot of Pirate talk we can bring to the table on these morning shows as well. That's it for this Thursday, Mic'd Up. Mic'd Up presented by Martin Lawn Services. He's Mike Vukovcan. I'm Mike Asti, and that's been it for Pittsburgh Sports Live and Pittsburgh Sports Now. Have a great rest of your day. And, of course, check out the sites